Can you guys see me? Can you guys see and or hear me? Hello, hello. I guess really. Oh yeah, on public lands. You okay? Hello, can you guys hear me? Can you guys see me at all? Am I getting stuff? Am I here? Am I visible? Hello. I am here. Okay. Hang on a sec. Let's see here. All right. Am I visible? You can see me? Yes, I'm alive. Loud and clear. Hey, Dr. Noms, what's going on, man? All right, hey guys. What's going on? You know, uh as usual, this is my stream edema. Today's gonna be a little different. Look at this dude. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Okay. You guys can't see what I see right now because I wasn't sure if YouTube would like give me a copy strike the video um if I put like the actual footage up. But right now I'm looking at the climate change town hall. It's Julian Castro who's doing his little spiel and whatnot. And it's not looking good right now. $5 from Kevin. Kevin, is you doing stuff again? Are you doing the things with the stuff? Dude. Oh yes you are. Yes you are, Kevin. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Oh, why'd you get rid of the message? Oh man. Yeah, buddy. How many are masochists? Oh, what happened to your message? I didn't see it. Oh, hang on. Hang on. Uh-oh. Hang on. There we go. All right. Hang on. I'm working out some duties here. Some doodly doos. I'm not even focused on the thing right now because I'm trying to fix some stuff on my main screen here. Main screen turn on. That sounds dirty. Never mind. It's so weird. I can't see here. Hang on. There we go. I kind of just want to get the chat. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I got it. I got it. All right. Yeah, I was trying to fix this chat here because I couldn't see it. I got like a whole bunch of tabs up, and I wanted to get the chat specifically, so that and then I was also going to try and get the other thing here. There we go. So I got climate debate right here on the side. Random stick figureness intensifies. Yeah, sure. I do random skits based off of every single person who comes to this town hall. That's 10 skits. uh, so to answer your question, 45. Yes, it is 45. CUNNINGMAN45. So today, what I said I was going to do is I was going to just do a sort of something of a live commentary of the climate change town hall that they're doing in America. It's on CNN, and I recently found out that they did a lot of like copyright strikes and stuff like that for the debates. So just to make sure that I'm like in the clear, I'm going to not show it on the screen, but I am going to have it up in my other tabs here, and I'm going to turn it up because I know you guys are probably interested in it. So I'm going to turn it up so you guys can hear it too. And then I might just like shoot off some comments every now and then, you know. You guys can hear me though, right? Life is good. Hang on. This dude is a slime ball, by the way. Julian Castro, he sucks. He was the freaking something HUD secretary during the Obama administration. And we all know how I feel about Obama. Actually, you don't know how I feel about Obama. It might be a little mixed depending on how long you've been subscribed to me. Really? Don't get any strikes as long as you don't upload it after ending it. Okay, here, let me turn it up. How's that? Can you hear it? It's loud in my ear.
And they affect who gets into the history books. It's slanted view on social studies. It's probably against including any kind of meaningful curriculum on the environment. So there's some structural changes that I believe that we need to make. But I do believe that that kind of curriculum should be taught in our schools because that's how urgent this crisis is.
Okay.
And we also have a role to play as mothers and fathers, family members too, right? I know that I've encouraged my children to be more environmentally conscious, right? To recycle, for instance, and understand the impact that their actions have on the environment.
It's okay. It's okay.
To teach
it's
them
not that loud.
About that. I hope that all parents, all families are able to do that. And we should encourage that because all of us have a role to play. Our schools do too.
Mr. Secretary, thanks so much for being here, kicking off this discussion. We really appreciate it very much. One time
right.
Down,
so,
to go. Up next,
yeah, like I didn't even hear what he was talking about because it was just stupid. Okay, so
anyone can deliver pizza.
Let's go because
Marco's can deliver America's
the thing
most
about
loved
all
pizza.
right, let's turn these
Right
stupid ads off.
Dough made from scratch.
Right, there we go. So the thing about Castro, first off, he's polling like what 0% in the polls. Well, the polls that I've seen, he's like at 0%, if that. He's like what? The Hispanic Obama. So the thing about the election so far, there's like 5 Obamas, and then there's 6 Joe Bidens, and then there's Bernie Sanders, then there's Elizabeth Warren, and then I guess it's Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, and then there's like 6 Obama types, and then there's like 5 Joe Biden types. Yeah, I know, ad block. Yep, right. Shh, don't tell anybody. Castro's the Hispanic Obama. Kamala Harris is the female Obama. Joe Biden is Obama's vice president, and then Hickenlooper, I think he dropped out. John Hickenlooper, he was the crappy Obama. John Delaney, who's still in the race for some reason, even though he didn't qualify for the upcoming debates, he didn't qualify, and there's no reason for him to be in the primary at all, the Democratic primary at all, because he sucks. If you've seen, you probably haven't seen. In fact, I can show it right now. This is John Delaney. Yeah, Obama is everywhere. John Delaney. Hang on, I'm gonna surprise you guys with this. He was booed at the California Democratic Convention, whatever. On Twitter, he is unpopular, vastly unpopular. Most of his tweets get ratioed on, like, all of his tweets. Actually, all of his tweets get ratioed on a daily basis. Like, every time he tweets, nobody likes him. Nobody at all. So it's amazing how he's stayed in this long. Actually, no, it's not amazing. He's actually a millionaire. He spent like, I think, up to not 16 million. Or he spent a good amount of his money. I think his net worth is about 16 million. And he's gotten that from being like a freaking trust fund baby or some crap. It's insane. But anyways, he has been weathering through his unpopularity in the Democratic primary so far by just funneling all this money into keeping his campaign afloat. And for what reason? No one knows. And the worst part is he's from Maryland. He was a former congressman, I think, from Maryland. And that fills me with so much anger because how dare the state that I'm from, state that I'm currently living in, they have the audacity to let out a person like that. And then he's going to run for president. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, well, anyways, we got another one coming up. Hang on. It's Andrew Yang now. Hang on, I'm going to turn it up for you guys. It just started back up.
We are seeing the consequences of the climate crisis now, but that will cross a massive tipping point if the world warms more than
millionaires,
1.5
yeah,
degrees
millionaires
Celsius or 2.7
and billionaires.
degrees
They're
Fahrenheit.
definitely popular.
We've already warmed up the planet 1
Elon
degree
Musk and all
Celsius
that.
since the Industrial Revolution, so we're more than halfway there. We have 11 years to avoid the catastrophic consequences of this crisis. Food shortages, rising sea levels, more extreme weather events like Hurricane Dorian that's churning toward the Carolinas right now. And for the latest on Dorian, I want to go to the CNN Hurricane Center and bring in Jennifer Gray. Jennifer?
Wolf, Dorian has actually strengthened just a little bit with this latest advisory at 5 o'clock. Now 110 mile per hour winds, just shy of a Category 3, actually, with this center just offshore. You can see Jacksonville to its west.
One of the it's moments like this,
northwest at about 8 miles per hour.
It's moments like this that I'm happy that I don't live in Florida, although I've always wanted to. Hurricane Dorian, a freaking Category 5 hurricane, just freaking terrible. Genius. Just put a bunch of fridges in the Arctic. Yes! And then that'll solve it. No, but seriously, we're all going to die.
All right, Jennifer, thank you very much. And with that, please welcome businessman Andrew Yang.
Yeah, let's see what this guy has to say. Give everybody $1,000. That'll solve climate change, right? Right, guys?
Thanks very much. Welcome. Thanks very much for coming. Please
oh, buddy.
Mr. Yang, so what's the first thing you would do? And welcome to the CNN. This is a historic town hall. Welcome.
Oh, it's
what would be
historic.
The first thing you would do to deal with this climate crisis if you were elected president?
Well, the first thing I would do is rejoin the Paris Accords.
Lucky you.
Let the world know that the U.S.
Unfortunately, we're on the coast. We're just like right at the water where all the hurricanes happen. And it's hurricane season. Started at the beginning of September, or I think late August.
Because right now, the trap that Democrats are in is that we're being told that moving towards a green economy is bad for jobs, it's bad for business. And that couldn't be further from the truth. We actually need to redefine our economic measurements.
He's literally going to say
clean air and clean water and let America know
how do you
that.
Change that?
Okay.
Well, the great thing is we made up GDP almost 100 years ago.
He's bringing it in. He's going to do the $1,000 a month argument.
We should never use it as that.
National well-being.
And here we are almost 100 years later following it off a cliff. So all we need to do is, as your president, I will go down the street to the Bureau of Economic Analysis and say, hey, GDP, 100 years old, kind of out of date. Let's upgrade it with a new scorecard that includes our environmental sustainability and our goals, the carbon footprint that companies are putting out there, but also our kids' health, which is tied to the climate, health and life expectancy, also tied to the climate, mental health and freedom from substance abuse. These are all things we can tie to our economic measurements, and then you will see us accelerate in a big way, because we can't fall into this trap, this false dichotomy that
I'm sorry, I'm gonna do
is bad for the economy.
All right, we have some
I'm gonna be
questions
doing a
starting
little
from
less
O'Neill.
talking as we listen to what they have to say, just because I want to. I really want to hear what they have to say about this, you know, especially Yang.
Go ahead.
I live at sea level in New York City. You said in a
Yeah,
presidential debate
good
that
luck indeed.
we need to
I don't-
retreat from vulnerable neighborhoods.
I don't know if
such
you
as
guys
mine.
can hear that, but I got a
Is this a
cat,
viable option for New York?
and she's in
It's
heat,
one of America's
so
great cultural
she's
and
gonna be
economic
doing a
assets.
lot of
How do you
yowling
propose
and stuff
to have
right
places
now.
at risk due to climate change?
Little silly
Will
stuff.
funds be available for adaptation and relocation?
Uh-oh.
How will those funds be generated and distributed?
Thanks for the question. I was just in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, where they have hundreds of homes that are flooding on a regular basis, 26 times or more per year. So imagine living in a home that's prone to flooding at that level of frequency, which is even more extreme than I suspect
lived in a
your
house like
home
that.
here in New York. So we would 100% make funds available to communities around the country for adaptation and resilience. And then we would take, and the big picture is we subsidize the fossil fuel industry to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. And so now everyone's looking around being like, where's the money? Where's the money? It's like, well, we know where the money is. We put hundreds of billions into the fossil fuel industry. We're still subsidizing it to this day. And now it's time to take some of that money and channel it to the needs of the American people. We're looking around, there are already climate refugees in the United States of America, people that we relocated from an island that was essentially becoming uninhabitable in Louisiana. We moved those people. None of this is speculative anymore. We need to get with the program, wake up to the reality around us, and let you know that you're not on your own. This is not a you problem, this is an us problem. And what do sophisticated, advanced societies do when there's an us problem? We put some of our collective resources to work and we solve the problems on the ground.
Would you eliminate some subsidies for
Collective
fossil fuel
resources.
or all subsidies?
I'd get rid of them all. I mean, why would you leave any of them off?
Okay. Okay.
And I
All
have to
right.
say, well, it's even darker than this, because you know how they've been spending some of their money, their billions of dollars in profit, on a misinformation campaign to the American people. And they've taken our legislature hostage. They have the fossil fuel lobbying industry that's in the tens of millions a year. And so we have to take back our government for the American people. I've been running for president now for a number of months, and this is the brutal truth in our society. There's the people on one side and the money on another.
Okay.
And you know a lot of the money
I
is
mean,
fossil
he's
fuel
saying the
companies.
right
So what do we have
stuff.
to do? We have to bring these together. We have to align the people and the money. Now, how the heck do you do that? My plan is to give every American citizen 100 democracy dollars that you can give to any campaign or candidate that you like in any given year. This would wash out the lobbyist cash by a factor of 8 to 1. It would make it so that if I'm a candidate and you like me, and then I get 10,000 Americans to like me, let's say in a congressional race, that's $1 million. And then when the fossil fuel company comes and says, I've got a check for you for $50,000, you can say, I don't need your $50,000 check. I have the people. That's how we take the government back from fossil fuel companies and start getting our government working for us again.
All right, I want to stay on this subject. We have a question from Vic Barrett from White Plains, New York. He's a fellow with the Alliance for Climate Education, has spoken at the UN Conference on Climate Change. He's among 21 youth activists between the ages of 10 and 21 who are suing the government for its contribution to climate change in the case of Juliana versus the United States. Vic, go ahead.
Wow, so innovative.
Hi, thank you
Good
for
for
taking my
him,
question.
her.
Do you agree that the
Him.
President of the United States has the constitutional obligation to end federal government support and promotion of a fossil fuel energy system, considering it endangers all citizens, especially young people like myself and future generations?
As I just stated, I would end all fossil fuel subsidies, and I'm going to take it a step further. I proposed a constitutional amendment that makes it the responsibility of the United States government to safeguard and protect our environment for future generations.
Okay. Maybe.
It's part of my $5.5 trillion plan to help address climate change. We need a constitutional amendment. We need to move our economy towards sustainable sources of energy. Here's another brutal truth. The United States of America is only 15% of global emissions. So if we really want to get the best of climate change, we have to make it so that countries in Africa and the developing world choose wind and solar over coal. And right now, the Chinese are going to African countries and saying, I've got a power plant for you. Great news, it burns coal. And what does that African country say in response? Great, because they're just looking for cheap energy. So if we're going to get the best of climate change, we have to go into these countries and make renewable sources of energy more competitive. So that's number 2 or 3 if you include the constitutional amendment. Number 4, we need to get our people to higher ground. You're not on your own. We need to start making our communities more resilient and protect ourselves. And you all know, if you've heard anything about me in the campaign, what's my flagship proposal? Freedom dividend. Everyone gets $1,000 a month.
Oh God, he roped it in.
That would help citizens of this country protect themselves in a natural disaster. Because we all know when Hurricane Dorian or Hurricane Harvey hits.
Yeah, $1,000 is definitely going to give me, allow me to afford that extra sub pump that I need to drain all that water from the freaking levees breaking.
Reverse the damage we're doing to our environment. It's not enough to do less of the bad. We have to do some of the good. So that's reforestation, that's ocean seeding, that's starting to actually rebuild the ecosystems.
He's not going to buy Greenland. That was a joke.
Yes or no, if you want.
The guy's a joke.
Would you ban all fossil fuel exports from the United States?
Well, I think we have to stop subsidizing the industry, but I don't think that includes banning exports, because if our industry, fossil fuel industry, which is going to be around for some period of time, is competitive and cost competitive enough to export to another country, I wouldn't stand in the way of that.
Are you in favor of a carbon-free America, and if yes, when?
I'm in favor of a carbon-free America, and my plan has us getting there in the next 30 years.
Do you support a carbon...
Oh no! I closed it. Excuse me, guys. Ay.
All the executives get paid for making tons of money at the expense of the
Okay, there we go.
So what you have to do, again, you have to tie these things together, and this is a big theme of my
I'm going to
campaign.
put something up so
this country runs on the almighty dollar.
Boring, you just see me sitting
It does not
here.
run on doing the right thing by us or the planet. So what we have to do is we have to tie people's incentives to doing the right thing, and then you'll actually see their behavior change very quickly.
I want to bring in CNN's chief climate correspondent.
Actually,
Mr. Yang, a moment ago you
hang
mentioned
on.
that sinking town
After he
in
says talks
Louisiana.
about
I'm
this.
so glad you did, because we have a
In
map.
fact, let me.
It is called Ile de Jean.
You know what? YOLO.
That is the Gulf of Mexico,
YOLO.
and
I'm
this
gonna do
is
it.
1985.
I'm just gonna do it.
Watching a single generation, how much seawater
gonna do
has
it.
taken over.
If
this
I get
part
banned,
of America.
Oh my gosh.
then
And this is what it looks like.
it would have been for a good cause.
In a lifetime, slipping into the sea, and it's so doomed that the federal government is spending, as you said, $48 million to move about 24 families 40 miles north. But I spent time there, and half of them do not
I'm
want
so
to
boned
leave.
if it
It's the
does.
only home they've ever known. Some don't
I am
trust
so
the
boned
government.
if
They
it
think
does.
This is a land grab. So if it's this expensive and costly to move less than 100 people, how do you envision?
Smash
a
that like
managed
button.
retreat for maybe
Share the
millions?
video because it's going to go down soon.
Miami, Charleston,
It's probably going to go down soon.
This is one of the great challenges of our time, and most Americans like where they live. Most Americans
I ain't gonna
do
risk
not
it. I can't
have,
risk it.
strong
I'm sorry.
relation
I
to
can't.
even
I'm
in
too.
the wake
I'm
of
a
a
wuss.
natural disaster.
I don't want to do it.
So first, we need to try and invest in making some of these communities more resilient.
wanna
which
do
will
it.
not work in some cases.
I don't want to risk my
It
channel. I've already
will
had
work
so
in
much stuff
New
happen
York
to
is
this
an
channel
example
before.
where if
I
we
can
were
get
to invest
demonetized all the
significant
freaking time.
resources, we might
Okay.
be able to save. Essentially, it's one of
We're
those
gonna be good
situations
with
where
audio. You guys are good with audio, right?
and then save perhaps 5 or 10 billion in damages if you do it right. So there's some instances where you pre-invest before the disaster hits. The second thing is that when there are communities that need to be rebuilt, we need to do a better job of, frankly, building institutional trust in our society and the government again. Because right now, many Americans mistrust our government. We're living in a country where 78% of
Classic
Americans
libertarian
are living
talking
paycheck to
point.
paycheck. Almost half can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. So when you come to them and say,
So
hey,
yeah,
we
let's
have your
just
interest
give
at
them
heart,
$1,000
they have their
instead of
head down,
actually
and there's not
solving
much
the problem.
optimism or faith.
Let's give them more money
So
to
the
throw
freedom
at the
dividend
problem.
of $1,000 a month, it has many effects. But one thing it does, it gets people's heads up. And studies have shown that getting
Yeah, it gets their heads up.
the boot off of people's throats economically, one, it gets them focused on the big problems like climate change, because it's very
Some
hard to
people
focus
like that,
10
but-
years in the future if you're worried about next month's rent. But the second thing it does, it restores public faith and optimism and trust in our institutions,
Hey,
and then we'll be
ex-warrior.
able to galvanize more energy around relocation over
ZTC
time.
ex-warrior.
We have more questions for you, Mr. Yang. I want to take a quick break, a lot more on the climate threat. And in just minutes, it will be Senator Kamala Harris's turn on this stage. We'll be right back.
So, okay, while that's going on, so Andrew Yang, he's an interesting character, to say the least. Chicken strips. I want some chicken strips, man. So, apparently, according to him, all he would do is remove the subsidies, try to increase competition with renewable energy, and it's just That's not what needs to happen. Okay? It definitely isn't. I would go into it more, but I'm just distracted here by all this stuff that I'm trying to do. I didn't set this up well at all. Like, I was supposed to have a whole bunch of stuff set up so that I wouldn't have to worry about, there we go, little music, just to keep there from being any dead air. I don't like dead air. That's the thing about me. My mama took a class, a radio class, and I actually helped her with it one time. She had to do an entire radio set. So I had music playing, and then I would have it fade out and stuff so that she could talk and all this extra stuff. It was really cool. But the one thing that I learned from that is that dead air kills a radio session. Like, it doesn't matter. It just, people hate it. Because, you know, when you don't hear anything, long time no see, yeah, pay all the problems away. Yeah, right. $1,000, just throw money at it, and the problems will go away, right? But yeah, one of the things you don't want to have is a lot of dead air in between, like, segments and stuff like that, because it's, when you hear a stream, like when you're on a stream or when you're listening to the radio or something, you don't want to have, if it suddenly cuts off, you're just going to change the channel. So you always want to have something going on, something happening, so you know, you're not bored. You don't bore the people and get them away. That's one of the reasons why I only have 4 viewers on here instead of like 20. I think I had like 20 on here at one point, and I was so excited, and then everybody left. But hey, you guys are the OGs, all right? The 4 people that are here, y'all are the OGs. Especially Kevin. I wonder if Kevin's still on here. Kevin, if you're here, say hey. But look, anybody who doesn't have a comprehensive climate change plan that involves phasing out fossil fuels, and making sure that those people who have the fossil fuel jobs are moved into another position in an egalitarian way, there's no reason talking to them. So I know Kamala Harris, she actually had a plan that she put out, and it's really just like almost a carbon copy, no pun intended, of what is it, Governor Jay Inslee. He was also a candidate. He dropped out because he didn't make it to the 3rd debate, but he was the climate change candidate for president in the Democratic Party, and you know, he had a pretty comprehensive plan. Hang on, it's back. The thing was, it wasn't enough. You know, it was good, but it wasn't enough, in my opinion, as a communist.
I want to go to Sarah Smith, a graduate student at Columbia University studying climate and society. Her question is about geoengineering technologies that would aim to reverse
under a capitalist framework.
Your platform relies heavily on geoengineering and locally based efforts rather than aggressive federal emissions policies. Geoengineering poses major risks, and according to last year's IPCC report, even aggressive development of carbon removal technology is unlikely to keep warming below 1.5 degrees Celsius, absent substantial rapid reductions in emissions. Can you quantify the reduction in CO2 attainable from the geoengineering strategies you propose?
I just want to clarify a point that she's making for some of our viewers. Sarah's question mentioned 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the temperature increase that the international community, as you well know, considers catastrophic.
Yeah. Congrats, Columbia's a great school. I went there myself. That doesn't make it good. So first, geoengineering is not the primary approach at all. We have to reduce emissions first and foremost. And if you look at my plan, of the 5 trillion, like a fraction of one of the...
Is there anything you guys want me to have up while this is playing?
We have to get the best.
I have heard of Discord, yes, but I don't really use it as much. I'm planning on it, though.
Think very, very big picture of what's happening. You have countries, island countries on the other side of the world that are literally sinking underwater. And we're lifting people, the UN is helping people move. Now, they don't have the capacity to do something dramatic to alter the environment. But imagine a country like China 25 years from now, who's going to be bearing the brunt of climate change in the same way that we are, they're not very consultative. And so you can imagine them doing something that affects us and the rest of the world, spraying sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere. So we need to face facts about the scope of the challenge and lead globally. So I would convene a geoengineering summit and get countries from around the world to make sure that we don't have rogue actors just going off on their own. So this is my approach. It is not the primary approach, but it's something that we need to explore in the days ahead, because the reality is the last 4 years have already been the 4 warmest years in recorded history. July is the warmest month in recorded history. The Earth is likely getting warmer around us, and even as we're attacking emissions, we need to start researching innovative methods to address climate change.
I want to follow up on that specific point,
so
Mr.
research.
Yang, because you want to invest in these new technologies.
I do.
Like space mirrors and
But how?
cloud seeding,
It's a freaking
which is actually
space
spraying
mirrors.
sulfur
No!
dioxide into the
What?
atmosphere. Why
That is the
divert
most
federal money, which is obviously scarce, to these
it's an idea.
unproven
It's
and
definitely an idea.
potentially risky ideas when there are known solutions out there that we all know, solar power, wind, stuff like that, that we
Exactly.
know already works.
Exactly.
We are here, Wolf, together because we know this is a crisis. And in a crisis, all solutions have to be on the
I'm
table.
gonna take notes.
And so if you are attacking on one side, you also should be researching various alternatives on the other. And that, to me, is just responsible management and responsible leadership.
Ooh.
Are all Americans
How
going to
about
have to drive electric cars?
Well, electric cars, it's not something you have to do. It's awesome. And so over time, yeah, we're going to make it so that electric cars are the thing to do. You feel like you're driving the future. And I did not just say that because Elon Musk endorsed me just the other week.
So what's
You did. You can look
what's
that
the
up.
answer? Are we all going to have to drive electric cars?
We are all going to love driving our electric cars.
Will we have to drive electric cars?
Stop asking!
There'll still be some legacy
Jesus.
gas guzzlers on the road for quite some time, because this is not a country where you're going to like take someone's, like clunker away from them. But you are going to offer to buy the clunker back and help them upgrade.
All right, we got a question from Rebecca Eastwood. She's the advocacy coordinator for a faith-based nonprofit in Washington, D.C. Rebecca.
Thank you. I am originally from Iowa, and many
Flying
in
them
my
is the
family
hard
are
part.
farmers.
Yeah, you're right.
Iowa's economy is deeply tied to industrial agriculture, yet the recent UN report on land says land use globally, including agriculture, is responsible for 23% of human greenhouse gas emissions, and that emissions from agriculture are increasing. What is your plan to protect farming communities in the Midwest while at the same time addressing how our food systems contribute to climate change?
I've been spending a lot of time in Iowa. I love the state a great deal. It's another thing about running for president. We need to help farmers modernize their land use in terms of the environmental impact. And once again, this is an issue around economic incentives being one direction, and then what's good for the climate, what's good for society in the other. So we have to try and bring those together by providing economic incentives and resources to help farmers modernize and rotate plant crops and try and actually measure the impact they're having on the environment. Now, the big issue in the farming community is that right now what's happening, all the mom and pop farms are getting gobbled up by these conglomerates. And you go, and instead of some beautiful vision of a family farm that you have in your head, it's some mega farm conglomerate with automated tractors as far as the eye can see. So the goal, in my mind, should be trying to create incentives so that if you are farming in a responsible, sustainable way, that we can actually make family businesses possible by supporting a food ecosystem that includes more farm-to-table dining. And to me, I'm an American that I believe most Americans would be happy to pay for a locally sourced farm-to-table supply chain as opposed to the mega farm monolith that unfortunately right now produces most of our food.
Well, let me follow up on that as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's sort of true. Locally grown food, especially if you grow it yourself.
Of climate change. Should Americans change their eating habits and eat less beef?
Yes.
The UN just released a study that
just
said we're
say
gonna be
yes.
okay if the vast majority of the world goes vegetarian immediately. You guys see that? So
it's the
truth. It's good for the environment. It's good for your health if you eat less.
I'm not
meat.
a vegetarian, but I know that.
It's an extraordinarily expensive
I know it.
thing to produce from an environmental sustainability point of view. So I think it would be healthy on both an individual and a societal level for us to move in that direction. But again, this is a country where there's a lot of individual autonomy, and so you can't force people's eating choices on them. All you can do is try and shape our system so that over time we evolve in a productive way.
What aspects of the Green New Deal do you support and which do you reject?
I love the vision of the Green New Deal. The framers of it have done us all a great service by energizing so many people around a vision. And to me, the only issue I have with the Green New Deal is the timing and the timeline. I mean, they are right that we need to take urgent action, but the timeline that they put out there would do away with commercial air travel and a lot of other things in a particular time frame, that if we have a little bit more time, we can head in the same direction and achieve most of the same value.
President Trump today announced plans to roll back light bulbs that are more
what is up with that?
efficient.
I think he's just messing with CNN on that one.
Should the U.S. government have a say on what kind of light bulbs we use?
Well, certainly, if we do have a say in what light bulbs we use, we need light bulbs that don't burn out. Because you know these light bulbs are manufactured, they intentionally burn out, so there's an industry and we replace them over and over again. Do you think that's good for the Earth? Of course
It's
not.
called planned
So, if anything,
obsolescence.
we should be,
That's a
pushing
feature
regulations
of
that make it so that our
capitalism.
light bulbs consume less energy and need to be replaced less often.
Yes.
Let's go to Wendy Fleischer,
Can't believe I'm
who's
talking
with
about
us.
light bulbs.
You know, that's what happens. Wendy is from Brooklyn. She's a consultant for environmental and social justice initiatives. Wendy.
Thank you. You mentioned China a few times. Some climate action naysayers say that China should act first. So tell us why the United States should lead in moving the country and making a transition, a just transition to a clean, healthy, clean energy economy. And who would benefit from the changes you propose? And how does your plan ensure that hardworking Americans are benefited and not hurt?
Well, to me, the U.S. is vital to building an international consensus on climate change. And so we need to act first, because by forming the table and saying who's with us on this, then we can galvanize dozens of our allies and partners in the Western world. And I believe that China would be a partner because they're seeing the worst effects of climate change on an epic, almost unimaginable scale. And if you take a look at some of the smog in some of their major cities, like people literally just wear masks just for their own health and safety. So the U.S. has always been a global leader. We are still the focal point of the world's economy. And if we lead on this, then we can move people in the right direction very quickly. As for American workers, I was just with Ned Reynolds, who's an entrepreneur in New Hampshire. If you imagine what we have to do, we have to install solar panels on hundreds of thousands of homes and buildings around the country. Think about the jobs that's going to create. Ned Reynolds started his own business. Now he's up to 260 employees, primarily solar panel installers in New Hampshire. So you talk about what's good for American workers. I think Ned's business is the business that we should be emulating around the country.
I want to follow up on that, because how can you ensure that America's efforts to cut emissions won't be in vain if carbon pollution, let's say in China or India, continues to expand over the next decades?
Yeah, that's why we need a global effort, Wolf. That's one reason why, to me, the Paris Accords, the only issue I have on them is that they didn't go far enough, because a lot of the enforcement mechanisms really aren't there. There are a lot of countries that sign them and just essentially it's like, well, you know, I signed it, I feel good, but then their corporate actors are not necessarily integrating them into their operations.
Especially these days.
So one principle that we're going to have in our businesses here is that if you are a very large business, you need to measure your carbon imprint and your effect on the environment. And then if we extend that to operations in other countries that are either of U.S. companies or over time our trading partners, then we can have more sophisticated standards that include environmental impact, not just for American companies, but the companies and countries we do business with.
As all of us who have followed your campaign know, you're an advocate for what's called universal basic income. Do you think that policy of cutting everyone a check would be enough to help, for example, coal workers, others in the fossil fuel industry who would be put out of work in a transition to a green economy?
Well, $1,000 a month is a game changer for tens of millions of American families. And while it's not going to replace someone's job, if you have a household with 2 adults, $24,000 a year is enough for you to make affirmative plans about your future, possibly go back to school, move, start a new business, take care of yourselves, make your family more resilient. And a lot of it, Wolf, is that people put this $1,000 a month. The question in my mind is, what's the alternative?
This is Vegas
like,
Pro
we know
16.
many of these jobs are going to be automated away or fade away in a transition to a renewable economy. So the question is, what do we have for American workers so they feel protected and part of the process?
Tina Savitis is a student at Fordham University here in New York, originally from Norwalk, Connecticut. Her question is about PFAS, toxic chemicals that have been found in U.S. drinking water sources.
Good evening. There's a lot of new studies coming out on the destructiveness of PFAS and how it harms human health. They're prevalent throughout the environment, so what is your plan for regulating the materials that go into the products that are used by everyday Americans?
We need to do much more. I'm the parent of 2 young boys, one of whom is autistic. And as a parent, when you have your kids drinking water or using various toys and household items, there's always something in the back of your mind, which is this safe? And I just came from Flint, and while this is a separate issue, it's kind of the same in the sense that the folks in Flint discovered that their water was toxic after the fact and are still recovering. So to me, safe drinking water is a fundamental human right, and that if you're an American, you should not be stressed out about the water that you are drinking and your kids are drinking. And this is, again, the problem with having the almighty dollar running our society, where people look up and say, oh, replacing the pipes is expensive, or oh, another substance would be more expensive. Are you kidding me? You know what's expensive? Poisoning our kids.
Yes.
Poisoning our kids is expensive.
As you know, Mr. Yang, 20% of U.S. electricity is generated from nuclear power plants. What would you do with those plants? Would you decommission them?
To me, nuclear energy needs to be on the table in a transition to a more renewable economy. Because our society consumes a great deal of energy, and nuclear, right now, it gets a bad rap in part because the technologies we're using are antiquated. And so if you look up, we are working on these new generation nuclear reactors that use thorium instead of uranium, and thorium is not natively fissile or radioactive. So the odds of a catastrophe drop precipitously. It's much, much safer to dispose of. It produces much more energy. So we need to upgrade to thorium-fueled reactors. And to me, though, trying to get rid of all the nuclear power plants that produce 20% of the nation's energy is not going to help us accomplish our goals.
Would you ban all offshore oil drilling?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Good. Finally.
We got another question here. There she is right there. Laura Cunningham is a lawyer who specializes in environmental litigation and private practice. She also works with Columbia University Savings Center for Climate Change Law.
Tackling the climate crisis will require contributions from all sectors, including the private sector. In your view, what is the role of corporate leadership and responsibility in this area? How will you work with businesses to create the necessary incentives and initiatives to drive meaningful progress on climate change?
Thought it was Cunningham.
I'm happy to say that American business is waking up. And the Business Roundtable led by Jamie Dimon recently announced that they need to have a broader view of their own economic impact than shareholder value. They need to expand it to stakeholder value, which includes their impact on the environment. So working with businesses, first, a carbon fee is going to go a long way because all of a sudden they have to pay when they pollute. So that's going to be immediate. And they'll look up and they'll do the right thing.
That'll always be absorbed by the consumer.
But the second thing is if we make economic impact part of our economic measurements, and then each company has to report on them, then you'll see their behavior change very, very dramatically, because in this country, you aim towards what you measure. One of the big problems in America is we are measuring the wrong things. Under my presidency, we will start measuring the right things, and businesses will be my willing partner in this.
Let's go to a video question submitted by Patrick Stolenwerk from Chicago. He's a PhD candidate in physics at Northwestern University. Patrick.
According to the Cost of War project by Brown University, 1.2 billion metric tons of greenhouse gases have been released by the military since the start of the 2001, quote, global war on terror. What will you do about the role of the military-industrial complex in contributing to climate change?
It's a great question. My father actually got a PhD in physics. I'm talking to him like he's here. He's not here. Just disappeared from the screen. We're spending $750 billion that we know of on our military-industrial complex every year. And I'm going to share a story that I heard secondhand, so I can't verify it. But there was a Top Gun, a fighter pilot, who said that his least favorite time of the year is at the end of the fiscal year because he flies over the Pacific Ocean and dumps oil into the ocean. Now, why is he doing that? Because they have to use all the oil that's budgeted or else they won't get the same amount budgeted the following year. So this broke his heart, broke my heart to even hear this story. What we have to do is we have to take some of the $750 billion and start channeling it towards our infrastructure, which will be an evergreen need. We know we need to make it more sustainable over time. But again, in America, we follow the almighty dollar, and right now there are hundreds of billions being spent on our military that is generating a ton of emissions and pollution. And so if we take a significant portion of that budget and channel it towards infrastructure, we can make a good out of right now a huge net negative.
What's the biggest personal sacrifice you want the American people to make in order to deal with this crisis?
You know, well, I was thinking a lot about this. Like right now, we feel all this pressure to have our micro impacts be low. So you carry a bottle instead of getting bottled water. You get those really irritating straws, sometimes not of your own choice. You know, you recycle, you compost, but then you have this sinking feeling in the back of your mind that your actions are not actually going to move the needle in the context of a $20 trillion economy. And so what I would ask of the American people is to think bigger about the changes we can make collectively, and that stop thinking that if you take some personal action, it's going to solve things, because the reality is we need to bring the entire world together.
Well, that's good that he's got that.
Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Wish I could stay for selfies. Thank you all.
To our viewers, up next, Senator Kamala Harris, followed by two more top candidates hoping to distinguish themselves tonight, Vice President Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Well, let's see if she's got anything to say about that. Okay, so while the what's it called are going on. As a matter of fact, actually, you know what? Oh, is it live? Oh, okay. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. So, that was interesting. Yang, he's I don't know. He says a lot. He says a lot of the right things, honestly. Yeah. No, we waste so much stuff. Like, as a matter of fact, let me look up some statistics. Like food, energy. There's a whole bunch of stuff that we waste on the daily. And it is crazy because, you know, I remember there was someone, Destiny of all people. He was one of the guys who said that capitalism is one of the best form, the best economic system that distributes resources fairly or efficiently. And it was just like, okay, if it does, then why is there systemic hunger all throughout the world? Why is there like homelessness? Why is there all these other issues under capitalism? Yeah, poor people don't have proper water. People are starving in the streets. In the richest country on earth, you got at least 500,000 homeless people on the on any given day. We got people who die from freaking lack of health care. People who die because they don't have access to health care. Not even access. They have access to health care. They just can't afford it. We all have access to health care in this country, but we can't afford it. So people can't afford health care. They have medical debt. There was a person who killed themselves. I remember seeing something on Twitter a while back. There was a lady who killed herself because she didn't want her husband to have to pay the exorbitant amount of money for her medical bills. So she ended up just killing herself so that she wouldn't have to subject her family to that. And that's what we have to deal with in this day and age. But yeah, capitalism is great, right? At least we got that PS4. At least I got this computer. I got this microphone or something. We got all this other stuff. Meanwhile, we're bombing innocent people in foreign countries for their oil. It's terrible, man. It's terrible stuff. Anyways, Yeah, so back to what he was saying. I just want to go over a few things. I put a few things down. I'm going to go through them real quick. Space mirrors. What the frick? Sure. That's an idea that some scientists had, and it's surely viable in some capacity. But to use that to try and defeat climate change, that's not even an option right now. The amount of time and resources needed to make space mirrors, first off, just no. Okay? And then electric cars, yeah, they are a necessity. We're going to have to freaking ban people from getting cars. Hang on. Kamala Harris is coming up. I want to hear what she has to say.
Good evening and welcome back to this night of CNN presidential town halls. We are live from New York and I'm Erin Burnett. Voters here tonight are asking the top 10 Democratic presidential candidates about the climate crisis. Scientists tell us we have only 11 years, so that's until 2030, to cut global pollution by half if we want to avoid the very worst consequences of the climate emergency. Think bigger fires in the West or deadlier
I don't
heat
like
waves,
her.
Supercharged storms like
She
the one
is-
we've seen now, Hurricane
she sucks.
Dorian, which is hovering
As
off the
a,
coast of the
news
Carolinas
pundit.
as I speak. We're going to hear from Senator Amy Klobuchar and former Vice President Joe Biden coming up. But joining me now to answer your questions, please welcome Senator Kamala Harris of California. Hi. Nice to see you. So nice to see you. Thank you. And please sit down. Hi, everybody. Hello. So, if you become president on day one, Senator Harris, do you declare a national emergency on the climate?
Well, I certainly would declare an emergency, a drinking water emergency. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to stand. And also, I think it's critically important that we immediately, on day one, get back in the Paris Agreement. I think it's important that on day one we immediately ratify the Kigali Agreement in terms of the Montreal Protocol and that amendment. And I think it's critically important on day one that we end any fossil fuel leases on public lands. And that I'm prepared to do on day one as a matter of executive action.
Sure.
So I want to go to the audience right away. Michael Estrada is from Deerfield Beach, Florida. He works for the environmental group called Green for All, which was co-founded by our own Van Jones. Senator. Michael, what's your question?
Good evening, Senator Harris.
Hey, Michael.
We knew moving towards a green economy for all is critical for our planet. As we make the transition from dirty diesel and coal, our industry workers, many of whom voted for Donald Trump in the last election, may fear losing their jobs, benefits, and ability to provide for their families.
Yeah.
How will you work across the aisle to support all workers and build trust with Republican constituents dependent on a fossil fuel economy?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, Michael. I think that, first of all, let me just tell you, I think about this issue through the lens of my baby nieces, who are 1.5 and 3 years old. And when I look at those babies, and I think about what the world will be like in 20 years if we don't act, I'm really afraid. And as it relates to those Republicans in Congress, where I've now been for 2.5 years, every one of those members need to look at the babies, the grandbabies in their life, and then look in the mirror and ask themselves, why have they failed to act? Because on the issue of this climate crisis, I'm going to tell you, I strongly believe this is a fight against powerful interests. And leaders need to lead. So lead, follow, or get out the way. And get out the way, starting with Donald Trump. So yeah, we need to work across the aisle. But I'm going to tell you, I've been there now 2 years and some months. I'm seeing no evidence of it. I'm seeing, I kid you guys not. In our United States Congress, I was part of a committee hearing during which the underlying premise of the hearing was to debate whether science should be the basis of public policy. This on a matter that is about an existential threat to who we are as human beings. So again, back to the United States Congress, here's my point. If they fail to act as President of the United States, I am prepared to get rid of the filibuster to pass a Green New Deal.
Okay.
Because we have to act.
Sure.
Senator, let me ask issue on that.
Doesn't
Obviously,
change the
that's
fact that you're a
significant
cop.
because you would have to do that.
She's gonna arrest all the black
if there's
people
no
for
cooperation.
polluting.
Right. Now,
That's
President
how
Trump,
she's
of
gonna
course,
solve
has
climate
moved at
change.
an unprecedented rate to remove environmental regulations, restrictions. By one count, it's more than 80 that he has either rolled back or is in the process of rolling back. But if you had to go that way to reinstate all those things,
If you forbid
what would
STH,
stop the
people
next
will
president
legally
from
do
just
it. Yeah,
undoing it and
that's
sort
true.
of having this become a seesaw?
Well, first of all, we have to have action. I mean, this is one of those issues that is demanding an incredible sense of urgency. The UN has told us, we're all very clear, if over the next 12 years, which is such a short period of time, if we don't take drastic action, it will be irreversible. So yes, I'm going to attempt to work across the aisle. I'm going to hope that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle look at the babies in their life and see what we see and see the science and stop denying the science. But ultimately, leaders need to lead. And so I am prepared, when elected, to lead. I'm going to first attempt to work across the aisle, but if we don't see any traction there, yes, I will take executive action. And yes, I will do whatever is necessary. Because this is about the health and safety of our country and our world. And America has to regain its position as a leader, agreeing that we are in this together with our allies and our friends and our neighbors. And this is about our mutual investment in our future. And so I'm not going to be burdened, frankly, by a concern about what the next president will do after I'm elected, because I know there's action we can take immediately that will at least stop, if not reverse the harm. But starting with taking on these powerful interests, which I've done before. As Attorney General of California, in a state of 40 million people, a state that is the 5th largest economy in the world, I was proud to be a fighter and took on the big oil companies. Great, powerful
Yeah.
I was proud as Attorney General of California to defend the toughest environmental standards. And I'm going to tell you something, Aaron. Part of my passion and commitment to this issue is I've actually seen firsthand what happens when leaders lead. Any of you go to Los Angeles, California about 20 years ago and remember what that sky looked like? It was brown. Babies had asthma.
And you did that. You
were
helped
warnings that
to do
seniors
that
should
as a
not go
prosecutor,
outside because
as an attorney
breathing that
general.
water would cause incredible
You
damage
were
to
the
their
one
lungs.
who
And the
single-handedly
leaders led, the public
cleared
said,
the
"Enough."
skies.
You look up at the sky in Los
Yes.
Angeles today, it's blue. We can do something about this. It is within our ability, and we
didn't do anything.
This fact. But leaders have to lead.
I
and
swear
I'm
I hate
prepared
that.
to do it because on this
Save
issue,
as
guys,
instead of save
as
as,
far
I
as
swear.
I'm concerned, it's not a question of debating the
Oh,
science.
man, I
it's
hate
a question
it.
of taking
It's
on
so
powerful
annoying.
interests, taking on the polluters, understanding that they have a profit motive to pollute, and so let's take them to court, and let's require that if they don't change their behaviors, they will pay those fines, and there will be accountability and consequence.
You mentioned those powerful interests, and there's a question about that. Of course, when you look at the severe weather, certainly we're seeing it with the hurricane now, Senator. But in your state, you are being hit by a lot of severe weather that many scientists attribute to climate change, including the deadliest state fire in history, which of course happened in Paradise. David Leon Zink lives there, has a home there, suffered through that, is a musician and consultant. David, go ahead with your question.
And Senator Harris, thank you for being here, for your leadership, your passion, your energy. Big petroleum and big coal were exposed in the media about confusing the public with contrarian science on climate change.
That's right.
Well, big tobacco did the same thing with smoking.
That's right.
And my father lost his life as a result. My wife and I just lost our home and our town, Paradise, California, to a fire that most scientists connect to climate change.
That's right.
How would you rein in these disinformation campaigns of big business so that our daughter's future is better than ours?
Yeah, let's see what you have to say about that.
So sorry. David, I visited Paradise while the embers were still burning there. And I don't need to tell you what you know and are living.
Dithering?
But for everyone else, so going to Paradise, California, while the embers were still burning, entire neighborhoods were wiped out. Like literally leveled where the only thing that stood were the chimneys from the fireplaces that to me looked like tombstones in a graveyard.
Probably don't want that.
The devastation was enormous. There were firefighters that were fighting fires while they knew their own homes were burning to the ground.
Mm-hmm. It really is hypocritical.
You are a living testament to, and thank you for your courage to share your story about the real devastation on a daily basis this is taking place in our country and around the world. What do? Well, this is what we did with the tobacco companies. We sued them. We took them to court because you know what happens? People who profit off of harmful behaviors, when you take away that money because you take them to court and you sue them, as I have done, it's extraordinary how they will change behaviors. They have to be held accountable. And maybe this is the prosecutor in me. They have to be held accountable. These are bad behaviors. They are causing harm and death in communities. And there has been no accountability, certainly not by this administration, nor, and I hate to say it so generally, by the Republicans in Congress.
So, Senator Harris, what would you do? Would you sue them? Sue
Yeah.
ExxonMobil?
I have sued ExxonMobil.
I mean, as president.
What's suing them gonna do? What?
Would you do that? Would you take them on, as with Big Tobacco?
Yes, I would take them on, and as
Oh,
president,
I'd
this
take
is
them
part
on,
of my
just like she did with
what we would
Mnuchin,
do
right?
is, one, reinforce the EPA under this administration, right?
Just like she
Under-
took on
under
Mnuchin.
President Trump, who, by the way, you
In
know, I'm
his-
gonna steal
in
a
his
line from
entire,
Governor Inslee.
real estate firm.
Governor Inslee, I'm stealing your line, and he said, you know, so.
That's not all she
said
stole.
Wind turbines cause cancer, and Jay Inslee famously and very with great humor said, no, they don't cause cancer, they cause jobs. Right? And so here's the thing. There has to be an understanding that there has to be accountability and consequence. And when we are looking at the behaviors that are possible, we know if we create incentives and also have a president who understands the science, understands the nexus between bad behaviors and harmful effects, and also understands how we can create
So they're going
incentives
to pay
for
money.
good behaviors.
I mean, they're going to pay money, the big companies.
Yes, they're going to pay money and they're going to pay fines.
Why are you
and they're gonna
always?
pay
She
fees.
always
And
asks
under my
these
plan, there will also
like
be a carbon
stupid
fee.
sideline questions.
And that money,
like
a lot
trying to
of
get
it is gonna
gotchas
go
out
to
of people.
the communities. And
I mean,
this is
sure,
part
with
of my environmental
even
justice
even with
approach to the issue.
the freaking
Part
cop
of it
she's
is going to
doing.
be that I'm saying that the fees have to also go to
So
empower
annoying.
those communities that for too long have been ignored. And I'm talking about the communities where children are going to school drinking water out of lead pipes. I'm talking about communities where they have wells as their only source of water, and those wells, because of the flooding that has taken place, have been infected with bacteria. And so my plan includes putting $250 billion immediately into helping re-establish the infrastructure around water in our country.
So, you know, you're talking about these fees and fines and at big companies, but what about regular Americans? I mean, you said at a rally in Atlanta earlier this year, and I thought it was a pretty important thing you said. You said, "quote, without much change to your lifestyle, we could confront climate change."
Right.
Is that realistic? That as regular Americans, we don't have to make many sacrifices? I mean, we all like our Amazon Prime.
Yeah, but you know, I get it. I'm not saying there won't be any change, but there, you know, we've seen it. I mean, I guess part of my perspective on this is I've actually seen what's possible. I've actually seen what's possible. When leaders lead, I've seen how in California, we put in place some of the, some would say toughest, I would say some of the smartest laws, and required changes in behavior, and we saw outcomes. And I don't think anybody that you talk to who has lived in California over all those years would see there was any drastic change to their lifestyle. Yeah, they may say, well, you know, I'm now driving a car that I can't really hear sometimes, you know, that Prius, right? They might say, you know, sometimes I have to, you know, I am now aware that I should turn off the lights every time I leave the room. My kids are now demanding that I take short showers. Yeah, those are things that are happening.
So will everyone have to drive electric cars?
Well, by my plan, by 2045, we will have basically zero emission vehicles, only 100%.
Sure.
By 2045.
Okay.
All right, let's go.
And let me add one more thing, Aaron, and also
By utilizing
school buses.
the free
So part of
market.
my plan is that by 2030, we will have electric school buses. 25 million children in our country a day.
Which collab?
Smelling those fumes. These are real issues. And again, we can do something about it. And here's what I want to say also. The private sector is really good
You mean
about
the one
saying
that I had?
if you as government
The one that I
are
did?
consistent with your rules,
The
and you
Astif
set a
movie collab?
standard,
Yeah, no, that's dead.
we will innovate and
It's
find
dead.
a way to meet it. I've seen this happen. So, I think that it is a false choice for those who would say, that this is about either you're in favor of the environment or you're in favor of a strong economy. That is a false choice. We can do both.
Jessie Bludorn, I want to go to you. She's a climate activist from New York City. She works with the climate organization 350.org. Jessie has a question on fracking.
Hi.
She says a lot of things, but then when you go into the details of her plan,
where
it's
fracked
so
gas wells
milquetoast
have become a
and
common sight.
stupid.
Yet the toxic impacts of fracking
It was
on
either the
community
Astif
are
movie
immense,
or the
from
pelvic
contaminated
thrust
groundwater
collab
to
or
poisonous
something like that,
emissions.
yeah.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point,
Yeah, let's check out
we
her
have to
history,
just
shall
acknowledge
we?
that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah, so thank you.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes, and I've, again, worked on that. You could talk to the folks in Santa Barbara about the work that I've done there. Where
Because
it's a
I
big
haven't posted
problem, but it's
anything in
big
a long
problem
time. That's
in
why
many areas of our
nobody
country.
knows
And
who I
yes,
am
Very
anymore.
definitive answers. I want to go to a video question now, Senator, from Cassandra Valent. She's from Keene, New York. She works for an online retailer and currently supports Senator Bernie Sanders.
Okay.
Oh, let's see.
We're told that there'll be more tons of plastic than of fish in the oceans by 2050, and it's not possible for individuals to drastically cut down on single-use plastics, while they are still so widely used by companies throughout the supply chain. What will you do as president to drastically curb the U.S.'s reliance on single-use plastics?
Yeah, let's see.
That's a great question, and again, if we look at, I think many of us have seen, and everyone needs to see the images of what these plastic bottles and straws and everything are doing to our wildlife, to our fish, to our oceans. And so it's about, one, creating the incentives. I've seen this again. We banned plastic bags in California and in San Francisco. And again, people had to get used to it.
So would you ban the single-use plastic and say, look, set the standard?
I think we have to create incentives to ban these. We have to create incentives. And there is no question that we have seen, again, we have seen innovation take place when leaders lead. And that's what I'm talking about as it relates to all of this. Look, let me tell you something. Those little plastic bags, when I was growing up, because my mother was into recycling, but her form of recycling also was all those plastic bags that when she went to the grocery store, she would keep a whole stack of them and then we used them as garbage bags, right? And so then we didn't have those anymore and we used paper bags as garbage bags. I mean, we can adapt, right? But we need to understand that leaders have to lead. Leaders have to lead, and
plastic
we can
straws
adapt.
are a big thing right now.
Yeah.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. Yes. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's really difficult to drink out of a paper straw when if you don't gulp it down immediately, it starts to bend.
Yes.
And then, the little thing catches it. And then, so we got to kind of perfect that one a little bit more.
So you'd ban it, but rely on innovation.
I mean, innovation is a process, right? You don't just do it. Innovation is a process, but let's encourage innovation, and I think we could do a little bit better with those flimsy plastic straws, but we do need to ban the plastic.
All right, we're going to have much more with
Sorry,
Senator
got
Harris
kitties.
coming up in just a moment, plus Senator Amy Klobuchar and former Vice President Joe Biden. We'll be right back.
well, all right. So that was a thing. Whew. So, out of the people in here, how many of you guys know about Kamala Harris at all? If you're from the United States, at least, and are you probably not. You guys don't know about Kamala Harris, do you? Well, for those who don't know, Kamala Harris is a cop. Yes, that was my kid. That was my baby. He was checking up on me. The family was checking up on me. I actually might have to cut this a little short because I got some personal issues that I got to deal with. But I'm going to see if I can stretch it out for as long as I possibly can. I mean, there's not too many of you guys on it. Oh, from Germany, huh? Okay. Well, that's cool. It's cool you're from Germany. A lot of foreigners. Yeah, she's a cop. She was in other words, she was just part of law enforcement in some degree. Like she was in she was the attorney general for in California or something. You still use Sony? Come on, man. It's online. If anything, you didn't hear that from me. I'm gonna have to delete this stream now. I'm probably gonna have to delete it anyways because I don't know if even the audio for the CNN town hall is allowed. But yeah, it's online. Shoot, I could send it to you if anything. Oh man. But yeah, she was basically part of that. And also she was not the best. A lot of people, she advocated for jailing the parents of truant children. She didn't prosecute Steve Mnuchin, who is I think the treasurer of the United States now. He's like the treasurer. He's in Donald Trump's cabinet. Like, and he was doing like this whole scheme with his real estate business in California. And I think the attorney's office that she ran, everybody there was telling her to prosecute him because he's clearly doing something. And she was like, I don't know. And then after that, when she became senator, or I think in 2014 or whenever she became the senator, or a little before that, she got donations from Steve Mnuchin, and she also got donations from Donald Trump. I don't know if that was before he registered as a Republican, or if he was still a Democrat at that time, because he was a Democrat. Don't let anybody else tell you, he was a Democrat. He started off as one, and then he ran as a Republican, and then he won because. So, I mean, yeah. The more you know about these candidates. All right, she's back.
About the climate crisis ahead for Senator Amy Klobuchar and former Vice President Joe Biden, but now more questions for Senator Kamala Harris. So let's go straight to an audience question now. Carolyn Corson is a lawyer from New York, Senator. She has a question about the impact of certain foods on the environment. Just to give some context here, the United Nations says that livestock cattle, contribute 14.5% of all human-produced greenhouse gases, which is an incredible number. Caroline, go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Climate change has been linked to agriculture and the overconsumption of red meat and also the overproduction of crops. Certain countries have changed their dietary guidelines to reduce the consumption of red meat in light of the impact of the climate change. Yeah. If elected, will you be supporting change in dietary guidelines, and then how will you plan on implementing the changes so that people effectively change their diets?
Yeah, I mean, and thank you, Carol, for your work and the question. There's
very thick
accent. The point that you're raising in a broader context, which is that
very
as
European,
a nation we actually have to have a real priority at the highest level of government around what we eat and in terms of healthy eating, because we have a problem in America. And we can talk about all that we are now, the subject of this conversation. We can talk about the amount of sugar in everything. We could talk about soda. We could go on and on. So the answer is yes. But I'll also say this: the balance that we have to strike here frankly, is about what government can and should do around creating incentives and then banning certain behaviors. I mean, just to be very honest with you, I love cheeseburgers from time to time, right? I mean, I just do.
So funny and
I
relatable.
think that, but there has to be also what we do in terms of creating incentives that we will eat in a healthy way, that we will encourage moderation, and that we will be educated about the effect of our eating habits on our environment. And we have to do a much better job of that, and the government has to do a much better job of that.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, you love cheeseburgers. I mean, we all do. I don't know whether
you know, from time to
try
time,
the
I don't
Beyond
eat them every
Burger,
day,
the Impossible
but
Burger, right?
Dang.
They try, but it's not quite
It's
the
making me
same.
hungry,
That's my
man.
personal
This
opinion.
is making me hungry.
But would you support
Gosh, this isn't what this is supposed to be.
Yes.
You know, the food pyramid, but people
Yes.
to reduce red meat specifically.
Yes, I would. And I'll tell you, I've actually worked on this issue in the past. And it's about, you know, it is about consumer awareness also. And again, maybe this comes from my years of being, doing the work I did as Attorney General, which is I strongly believe that the American consumer is still left without the information that you need and deserve to have about what it is that you are putting in your body or surrounding yourself with and the health implications of those things. And so across the board and with this subject, we have to do a better job. We're going to be taking on powerful interests. But I've always believed that we should, you know, we should expand what's on those cans of those things that you buy in the grocery store. We should expand the list, and included in that should be a measure of the impact on the environment.
So you have said in your new plan,
Please clap.
you talked about a climate pollution fee.
Yeah.
And just to try to understand what that is. So it's going to go on big companies, right?
Yeah.
They're going to pay this fee.
Yeah.
But how do you make sure that they don't do what they will try to do, which is immediately pass that on to consumers?
Exactly.
We're going to do it in a way that is about what we've always done with industry, which is to say that there has to be some connection between the fee and bad behaviors, and there has to be, and that we have to monitor whether it's going to be passed on to consumers. But I'm going to tell you that should never be a reason not to actually put a fee, and in particular, carbon fee. The other piece that is connected to your question and the previous question is also what we do in terms of scoring. So part of my plan is that we will require all elements of industry to actually score, and they will be scored based on the carbon imprint that their business creates. And we will score that. So again, that industry, that business, and we can all be aware of and measure the impact of their behavior on the environment. So there has to be some nexus, though, between what we do in terms of frankly regulating and impact in terms of the harm to communities. And the fee will be the consequence of bad behaviors, frankly.
So you're going to be hiring a lot of people. I mean, this is going to require a lot of hiring, right? I mean, I would say even at the EPA or the DOJ, right?
Well, it's going to require fixing what this Trump administration has done. I mean, listen, guys, let's just be really clear. Donald Trump, he's got everybody excited about those crazy tweets. Meanwhile, with this hand, quietly undoing regulations that were built up over years, including incredible stuff that the Obama administration did, and quietly undoing that. So everybody's distracted by the crazy tweet. Meanwhile, completely deregulating industry. And so, yeah, we're going to have to build it back up. But it is not necessarily about hiring a massive number of people. It's about priorities. It's about saying to the people who are there, listen, I'm prepared to back you up when you put in place enforcement against these big polluters, against the fossil fuel industry for polluting the air we breathe and the water we drink.
One powerful industry is an alternative to traditional fuels like oil and gas, and that is nuclear. And I want to go to a video question now from David Gaines. He's a retired National Park Service employee, and his question comes to us from Yarmouth, Maine.
Good evening, Senator Harris. Given the existential threat to humanity posed by global warming, do you believe that the time has come to put past nuclear power failures in perspective and embrace a new and smarter generation of nuclear power technologies, given all that has been learned and the scale of the crisis that we're confronting today?
Thank you. So biggest issue that I believe we face in terms of nuclear energy is the waste. And what are we going to do with that? And I will tell you that unlike this administration, which on an issue that is next door to me, which is Yucca Mountain, let me tell you, I will never, like, that's a non-starter for me. And which is the kind of disposal that's happened at Yucca Mountain, and also taking away that state's ability to make decisions. I mean, literally, Aaron, they were in the middle of the night, this administration, in the middle of the night, carting in waste into Yucca Mountain without the authority and the permission of the leaders of the state of Nevada. So that's how I feel about it, that, you know, we have to make sure that this is not about the federal government coming in and making decisions about what each state can do in terms of the nuclear waste issue, which is the biggest part of the concern about nuclear energy.
So Senator Sanders now says he wants to phase it out, get rid of nuclear power. And just for context, this country gets 20% of its power from nuclear power. So to say that is not a small thing. Yeah. But he wants to phase it out. Is he right? Do you agree?
Listen, we have to figure out what we're going to do about the waste. And we still don't have the best ideas yet. People are working on it, but we have to figure it out. But my bottom line is that I'm not going to allow the federal government to go in and impose its priorities on any state. It's going to have to be those states who make that decision.
Senator, I want to go now
states'
to our
rights.
Chief Climate Correspondent Bill Weir.
They even spelled nuclear wrong.
Questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Aaron. Senator Harris, I'm just back from a reporting trip in Alaska and happened to spot one of the Coast Guard's major icebreakers off the coast of Nome there. And that is not easy because our country has 2 total. Meanwhile, the Russians have at least 3 dozen and more on the way, and they're just one superpower that seems keen on dominating all the new melting pathways.
I wonder how he'll take this
all the richness
McCarthyist
buried beneath. So as Commander-in-Chief, how would you direct your military to deal with this part of the world, this new frontier? And
new frontier.
How do you convince both Arctic allies and enemies to heed the science and leave billions and
what
billions of
enemies?
worth of
What
oil and
enemies?
gas under what's left?
Oh my God!
Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot to unpack with what you.
Gosh.
I mean, first
Oh
there is
God, I hate
what
this
I believe
Russia
are the
thing.
motivations of Russia, which is to expand its territory, and but
just like
let's
the
put that
United
aside
States.
and just talk about our
both
involvement
imperialists.
there. We should not be selling or leasing public land for the purposes of drilling. And I will, and I, on, you know, back to day one, I am opposed to that.
Thank you.
And again, under this administration, we are seeing, I mean, frankly, I would call it corruption. I would call it corruption.
I would
meaning
dare
that there
I
are
say it's
members
called
of
you
this
would call it
administration
corruption.
who have for their entire career not been in the business of public
it is
service,
corruption.
but in the business
It's
of
all
being
corrupt.
a part of industries that are profiting off of these kinds of behaviors that are harming our environment. And people who, when they leave this quick stint in public service, will go right back to those industries that they are helping every day by deregulating those industries. And so as president, one of my greatest priorities on this subject will be about preservation of public lands, and that is part of actually my plan.
Getting back to Russia, because you mentioned obviously that your view on that you think it's about extending territory. You know, Bill raised something. This has been a long issue, and we have done nothing about it as a country. 2 icebreakers versus now at least 3 dozen. Would you match them on the icebreakers?
It depends.
What
on
even
the
are
purpose of those
icebreakers?
is. What is the purpose? What are we saying is the legitimate purpose there? If we can answer that question, then perhaps we can have that conversation. But I don't know what the legitimate purpose is.
All right. Let's go now to another audience question. Carson Tuller is from Brooklyn, LGBTQ and disability activist. Carson, go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Carson.
So I have a spinal cord injury. And part of having a spinal cord injury means that I experience something called thermodysregulation. Or in other words, I can't regulate my body temperature.
Yeah.
I can't sweat. July of 2019.
He's a little misty
was our
right now.
Earth's
You can't
hottest
see it,
month
but he's
on
a little
record.
misty. So it's
And
weird
I
how he says he can't sweat.
Had my health put at risk.
He's got a
seriously
little thing
more than
just
once.
spritzes himself.
Everyone is affected by climate change, but people with disabilities are disproportionately affected by our Earth-changing climate. How do you plan to support already at-risk and marginalized people who are experiencing the impact of climate change now?
Yeah. Thank you for giving a voice to this. So I think about this in the context
God,
of
this is
many
so
things,
irritating.
But ultimately, it's about empowering communities that are often ignored. Just to be candid.
Sure.
And that is a big part of the emphasis on in my plan, is addressing that. And it is about our disability community. It is about our indigenous people. It is about black and brown communities. It is about communities that have experienced poverty. And all of those communities have been disproportionately impacted by the change that we are seeing in our climate, not to mention the kind of behaviors by the fossil fuel industry that have been about pollution, about dumping, and all of that. Let me take you back to 2004, when I was District Attorney of San Francisco, and I created the first environmental justice unit of my office. And one of the reasons is that there is a community in San Francisco called Bayview Hunters Point, where the annual, at the time, household income was $15,000. And there were companies that were just dumping full-time into the water around that community with serious health consequences. And so I took it on, and that was one of the reasons I created my environmental justice unit, to take it on, saying that no community should be dumped on. No community should be less than, those communities that have power and influence and access to power and influence. As Attorney General, there's a community in California called Mira Loma, a small community of families where the grandmothers had been for years asking people in power to take seriously the fact that the babies in that community had the lowest rate of lung development of any children in the area. And I intervened. And I say all that to say that part of how I approach this issue is to say that it should be our responsibility, and I have always considered it my responsibility, to make sure that we leverage the incredible power we have in a way that is about empowering those communities that have been long overlooked and ignored. And so on this issue, and I also rolled out recently our whole plan and my plan around the disability community and what we need to do to extend access and to extend resources. So,
Senator Harris, thank you so much for your time tonight and for all of our audience. Thanks so much to all of you for joining us. Next, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, and ahead, former Vice President Joe Biden. Senators Bernie Sanders also will take the stage this evening. We'll be right back.
Golden Corral's juicy endless sirloin and saucy St. Louis style ribs really put the meat in Meet Me in St. Louis. Endless sirloin and St. Louis style ribs. Golden Corral, the only one for everyone.
At Safe Flight Auto Glass, we really pride ourselves on making it easy for you to get your windshield fixed.
Let's turn in your science papers.
This teacher always puts her students first.
I did mine on You did? Oh, I can't wait to read it.
Sorry about that. So, well, that was something. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's definitely Russian. What did you say? There you go. Union of Indestructible Republics of Free. What? What does that mean? What did you say? Hang on, let me see here.
Союз нерушимый республик свободных.
What is that? I don't know if Google Translate is just not making it good enough. Oh man. All right. So, yeah, it was something. All right. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and skip this next one. You don't need to worry about the next one that's coming up because it's Amy Klobuchar, and nobody cares about Amy Klobuchar because she is a non-issue when it comes to the election at this point. They're just keeping her the first line of the USSR anthem. I don't think that's the right, or is it? I don't know. I kind of want to play it, but I don't want it. I'm not going to play it. I won't do that. I should, but I'm not going to. Let's see here. Well, yeah. So I'm not gonna focus on that anymore. I'm gonna do something else because that was getting kind of boring. Besides, the real stuff comes at like 9 o'clock. That's when Bernie's up. Although I do want to hear what Joe Biden has to say about this, about climate change, because he's been wishy-washy on the issue. And as a matter of fact, him and his campaign actually was one of the main people who were arguing against having a climate change debate, which is the reason why there's a CNN climate town hall happening now. And so, seriously. Okay, so do you guys want anything? Did they really? They really did that. Wow. They seriously did that? I didn't see it. Okay. But yeah, if you notice, nobody's talking about building infrastructure, building electric trains, investing into electric transit, electric public transit, or at least carbon neutral public transit. You don't see anybody talking about that. The only person who I've seen is Bernie Sanders, really. He's the only one who's ever had like a sort of anything of a comprehensive infrastructure plan, at least in regards to that. Because in the United States, there isn't like a mass transit system like you see in places like France or in most places in Europe. And I think in Germany, there's a train system, right? AZ, if you can respond to that, I don't know if you can. But yeah, stuff like that, you see, it's crazy. Yeah, I figured you have electric stuff here, but like you do have like a train system that pretty much goes around the entire country, and we don't have that even from the Northeast to what you wouldn't be able to take a train. So I know you wouldn't be able to take a train from, let's say, here to like a Midwestern state. So, and that's the issue. There's a lot of transit systems that go from like state to state, north to south maybe. But there's nothing that goes across the country from East Coast to West Coast. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have. Because if we were to invest in that, a lot of people wouldn't have to worry about taking planes to all these different to all the different states and whatnot. But there's just a whole bunch of other stuff that you can do with a what am I trying to say? Good Lord, it escaped my mind. But you get what I'm saying. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we have to focus on like planes. Our focus is on planes when we have to go from one place to another. Even though the United States isn't even that big compared to other places. It's a big country, sure, but it's not the biggest country. Not too big, at least. Not too big for us to have something, a transit system similar to Germany or the European Union in general. France, Great Britain. I mean, not Great Britain. The UK. It's terrible. All right, so direct trains for yeah, exactly. Well, wait. How would you have direct trains from here to London? From there to London? If you live in Germany, there's water. Unless there's a bridge. Is there a bridge? Did they do that bridge? From what was it? I think they had a plan or something that they were gonna make a bridge from like London to what was it, like Spain or Portugal or something? Because it's like the shortest area from mainland Europe to the UK. I don't know. But I remember there was I heard something about it. In fact, let me look it up. Instead of just trying to say stuff, pull stuff out of my head, out of my butt. Oh, okay, you meant France. Yeah. So there's a yeah, I know. There's a tunnel that takes you straight to France. There's a whole bunch of places that do that. Armel Canal. I'm sorry, I butchered that. Oh man, but that's what I'm saying. I can't. I just can't. I'm trying to think here because I'm getting a lot of notifications from my personal life saying that I have to leave. I'm getting a lot of text messages and stuff. Yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to stop it here. Man. All right. Well, yeah, I'll just leave it here. Okay. Well, it was nice. It was nice and fun while it lasted. to be sure. But yeah, I'm gonna have to leave it. I'm gonna have to end the stream here. So, yeah, that's it. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm gonna see if I can upload this. I might not be able to, but if I can't, I can. If I can, I can. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that. Ring the notification bell, etc. Alrighty. I'll see you guys later. Okay? Hugs and kisses and all that jazz. I promise the next time I stream it'll be a lot better. Alright. Let's see. There we go. Alright, see you guys.